Well, hi there, food friends. It's Kevin, and welcome to Cavalcade of Food. And today we are going to do a Jello mold. And we're going to do one because the holidays are fast approaching. We're going to have Thanksgiving here before too long, and then, of course, the whole Christmas season. And a Jello mold is something that I think, in terms of American culture, has always been, or for a long time, has been a part of holiday celebrating. And so I want to share with you a Jello mold that I bring to the table for all of these family celebrations. And this one is fairly simple. And, you know, Jello has such an interesting history because Jello, what we think of Jello now is we think of you know, hospital cafeterias and that kind of stuff, and it's really not a particularly glamorous or exciting dish. Well, it actually used to be. Because gelatin, honestly, is made from animal bones. And so back in the mid 19th century to late 19th century, the only people who had Jello or gelatin of any kind were rich people. And that's because they had cooks. And those cooks could prepare the gelatin by boiling the bones, which had to be boiled for hours and hours and hours in the kitchen. It was not an easy task to boil those bones down, and it took forever. This was not something a regular home cook would even approach. It was just too labor intensive and time consuming. But when you had a staff, because you were rich and you had a couple of cooks and other sort of domestic help around the house, well, you could have Jello. So Jello was actually a dish of the aristocracy and the rich. So let's keep that in mind. But in the late 1890s or early 1900s, I don't recall his name, came up with a easier way to make Jello more of a quick fixing dish by making it granulated and something that only needed to be rehydrated with hot water. And then Jell-O, which is a brand name, of course, was born, and flavors were added to it. And I have to tell you, when Jell-O hit the scene in the early 1900s, it was a mind blow. It was like, what? Wow. This was the thing. And people who could now make gelatin themselves, who weren't rich and who had to do their own cooking, would serve Jello a lot. And at fancy dinner parties, there would be a gelatin salad course. And you had all these wonderful fruit flavors. As time went on, people found a way to put all kinds of weird stuff in Jello. Chopped and shredded vegetables and, you know, tuna fish and mayonnaise and all this kind of stuff. And then you got those weird savory gelatin salads that we often remember from the middle part of the 20th century. But the fruit-flavored gelatins were the ones that were really in the mix early on. Cherry, lemon, lime, orange. These were like the original flavors, strawberry of Jello. So just some backstory on the history of Jell-O. Put it into the Google if you want more information. It's a fascinating story and piece of American history. Jell-O is very much an American culinary dish, and we're not going to do anything too weird, but we're going to make a molded gelatin. I guess you could call it a salad. And this is something that I like to serve, particularly where you have a table full of salty, savory foods like Thanksgiving. It's nice to have be able to get a little bite of sweet. And I know sometimes that's accomplished through, say, like a cranberry sauce or a compote or something like that. But we're going to do it with gelatin. The nice thing is I'm going to make basically a strawberry gelatin, and I'm going to put oranges in the Jell-O. So Mandarin oranges, canned. You can take this in any direction. Use whatever flavor Jell-O that you like. Use whatever canned fruit you like. Do not use raw pineapple in Jell-O. It will not set. There's a thing about enzymes that occur in fresh fruit, particularly pineapple, that prohibits the gelatin from setting. So if you're going to use pineapple, which I love to use in Jell-O salads, always use canned pineapple, because in the canning process, the fruit is essentially cooked, and the enzyme, it removes that enzyme that prohibits the gelatin from setting up. So, all that said, I'm going to start by getting a cup and a half of water boiled. And the recipe for this is below the description, so you can take a look at it. It is a fairly straightforward recipe, doesn't require a lot of ingredients. And even though Jell-O in a lot of ways is sort of passé, you don't see it as often as you did. For those of us who are children of the middle 20th century, I think we grew up seeing a lot of Jell-O on tables of different forms. So if you have a Jell-O story, or you have a family Jell-O salad that somebody always made or continues to make, I love hearing about it. Put it down in the comments and share it with me, please. I love to read that stuff. But we're going to get ready here and put together our holiday Jell-O mold. Okay, so here we go. We are going to put our Jell-O in. Now I'm using a 6-ounce box of Jell-O, which is the big box. You can use 2 3-ounce boxes instead if you want. Same thing. So we've got 6 ounces of Jell-O. This is strawberry. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of boiling water. And we're going to stir this. This is our opportunity here to make sure that all of this gelatin gets dissolved. And it really is an important step. I know it seems like, just pour this in, pour that in. No, you want the gelatin to dissolve completely. It's very important that it does. So I usually use a whisk here. That allows me to kind of feel the bottom of the bowl to make sure that there's no granulars left in there. So we're just going to stir this. So I think that's pretty good. All right. So we've got our Jell-O dissolved. Now we're going to add a cup of very cold water. So I actually had that water in the freezer so that it could get cold as possible. and we're going to stir that in. That's bringing the temperature of this Jell-O down. So as you know, Jell-O, you have to have hot water to dissolve it and kind of bring it back to life, and then you need cold water to help it set. So we've got a cup of the cold water. Now I'm going to add about 3 cups of ice cubes, and we're going to stir that around. Now a lot of this ice is going to melt, obviously, because the water is still much warmer than the ice cubes, and it's going to melt those down. But as the ice cubes melt and you're stirring, you're going to actually see this Jell-O begin to thicken a little bit, which is what you want. Okay, I'm going to leave that ice in there for a second. I'm going to take the canned fruit. Now again, this is just a 15-ounce can of Mandarin oranges. I have drained the syrup out of it. Now I like to do this. I like to cut the Mandarin orange segments so that they're a little smaller. I leave them in the can, and I just take my kitchen shears and I just go through it and just do a few snips here, and I think it does a decent job. It's just easier than rolling it all out on a cutting board and chopping it up. Okay, there. So now we have done that, and I'm going to come back to this. And I don't know if you can tell, but it is starting to thicken up. You kind of want to get this consistency here of, like, think of an egg white, okay, and how an egg white sort of looks. That's what you want. What I'm going to do now is take a slotted spoon, and I'm going to just retrieve the ice cubes out of here. I always loved Jell-O in pretty much every form, and I know growing up I saw a lot of different Jell-Os around at parties and such. Some had, like I said, weird things in it, like cottage cheese, although, yeah, that actually wasn't that bad. But a lot of times there are some pretty famous Jell-O salads that have different vegetables in it. Okay, I think I got, oh, there's one. These the remnants of these ice cubes here left. Can you see that? Can you see sort of the thickness of that Jell-O? That's just what we want. Okay. Now, I've got some whipped topping here. So what I'm going to do, this is just a standard 8-ounce tub, and I'm going to add half of the tub of whipped topping to our mixture here. Okay? We're going to do that first. And we're going to work that in. This sort of becomes almost what they would call a Jell-O parfait salad because of the whipped topping. But we want that to sort of dissolve into the bowl, into the mix. Again, depending on the party and depending on the season, you may want to do different colors. You may want to, the whisk will help break up some of that whipped topping. You may want to do, green or orange or lemon or pineapple flavored, or, they make so many different flavors of Jell-O now. You have a lot of options. Okay, so once you've got half the topping in and pretty much incorporated, now we're going to add the other half. I do this in stages because I found that if I put the whole thing in, it's just really hard to get it all broken down and incorporated, and it seems to be easier if I just do it in stages, half and half like that. Okay. So, of course, we save our whipped topping containers for leftovers and little take-homes. Okay. Again, we're going to just sort of break that down. Get that incorporated. There. What a great color, huh? Okay. So, now, we're going to put this in the refrigerator, and we're going to put it in for 15-20 minutes or so until it's just almost set. Then we will add the fruit. Okay? So we'll come on back after this spends a little time in the fridge. Okay, so the Jell-O has been in the fridge for almost 20 minutes. You can see it's sort of setting up a little bit here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add our fruit. So here's our mandarin oranges. If you remember, I snipped them. I cut them up with the scissors. And I'm going to drain this again, because when you cut this fruit, what often happens is a lot of the juice that's inside the fruit is released. And so I kind of don't want to add any additional liquid, just the fruit. So I think that's pretty good. Okay, so we'll put that over here. So now we will sprinkle in our pieces of mandarin orange, and I'm going to just sort of fold this into our Jell-O mixture. The reason we wait for the Jell-O to sort of set up a little bit before we add the fruit is just so that it all doesn't completely fall to the bottom, and that some of it will be sort of suspended in the gelatin. Okay, now I've got a mold here, and this one may look familiar to some of you. This is a Tupperware mold, a classic, and you could certainly use a metal mold. I have a lot of them. You've probably seen them. They're all hanging up on the wall here around the kitchen studio. But I like this one, and we're going to pour our Jell-O in here, like so. And these Tupperware molds are great, and of course they were very popular items for Tupperware. I see these all the time at thrift stores and rummage sales and things like that. So they sold a lot of them. And one day we'll talk about Tupperware. We're going to talk about the cultural significance of Tupperware and how Tupperware really allowed a lot of people, women mostly, to earn a really good living selling Tupperware. But anyways, we're going to use this Tupperware mold. So we've got our Jell-O in here now. Now this goes back in the refrigerator for 2-3 hours minimum. We want it good and firm and set. I like to put it in, there is a lid that goes on here. I'm not going to put it on. I like to put it, I think it gets colder faster without the cover, and I think it sets better, just from my own experience. So whatever mold you use, I generally don't cover it when I put it in the fridge for its final set. So that's where this is going to go, and we'll come back later, get it out of the mold and onto a plate. Okay, we are back, and our Jell-O mold has been in the fridge, almost 5 hours. So it's certainly set. So what you want to do is you want to get a bowl that is larger than your Jell-O mold. And you want to fill it not quite 3/4 of the way with lukewarm water, room temperature water, not hot, just room temperature. You don't want to fill it up all the way. We remember our high school physics class, displacement. We're going to put this in here and going to just gently warm or raise the temperature of the sides of the mold. That will help the gelatin release from the sides. It'll soften on the sides and it'll just make it easier to come out. We're also going to do a little trace around with a paring knife to sort of cut the edge loose. I've got a plate in the refrigerator. I've had it in there for a while. You could put it in the freezer if you forget at the last minute for 10 minutes or so. That we're going to unmold the Jell-O mold onto. I'm always impressed when I go to a restaurant or a person's home and they serve cold food on a cold plate. Amen. And hot food on a hot plate. That's really how it should be done. It helps keep the cold food cold, like a salad, and putting hot food on a cold porcelain plate is a surefire way to cool the food down in a way you don't want. So anyways, that's just a little table tip. But all right, we're going to come back and we're going to start the process of unmolding our holiday Jell-O mold. Okay, gang, here we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this paring knife and I'm going to kind of go around the edge of the Jell-O mold. This one's got a lot of scalloped edges here, and I'm just going to loosen that up. Just like that. Don't have to go deep. Just, okay. Now we've got our bowl of lukewarm water, and we're going to just put our mold in here for a minute or two. Now, as that is doing its thing, here's my plate that I'm going to put the Jell-O mold on. Now, let me say this. This plate's been in the fridge. It's nice and cold. But I don't know if you can tell, it's got a little bit of a lip. It kind of comes up. You want that, okay? You want that because the Jell-O, I'm going to get a towel here, as the Jell-O, if it's going to be out for a while, as the Jell-O gets warm and loses its coolness, it will start to become less firm and less rigid, and it'll start to what I call slouch. You're going to get Jell-O slouch. And when that happens, you want a plate with a little lip on it so that it doesn't start blobbing off the side. Okay, if that makes any sense. All right. So I give it a little shimmy like this. All right, I'm going to give it one last little dunk here. So this, to me, I got a couple plates sort of this size and this shape. A little bigger than your Jell-O mold and with sort of the upsweep sides to it. Okay, just going to wipe the water. Then move that out of the way. Put this here. Again, sort of will center it. Down we go. And then I'm going to lift this center piece, which will let air in. And there, my friends, is our Jell-O mold. Here's the inside. You can see we got almost all of it out. Pretty good, I would say. And beautiful. You could certainly garnish this. Some people might, it's really hard to put lettuce on the plate because when you invert it, it falls. You could put a little lettuce on the top of the Jell-O mold and then go ahead and invert it if you wanted to. But now you tell me that that doesn't look fun. Let me get a bowl because there's only one thing we got to do next, and that is give it a taste. So when I serve this, I have a spoon. I use a large serving spoon. But I like to give people, if you have it in your china set, a little bowl. And sometimes these are referred to as fruit bowls, but just a little bowl on the side because I think it's nice to have this Jell-O off the plate with all the other savory foods, with the potatoes and the gravy and the vegetables and the meat. Sometimes this can, from the heat of all those foods, it will start to melt. And of course, we don't want that to happen. So we're going to, so I give people a side plate here, and that's what we're going to do. And I'm just going to go dig in here and take a nice scoop of this Jell-O. There. You could have this as a dessert, certainly, if you wanted to, instead of a side, because, I mean, it's that good. Here it is. Yum. Oh my gosh. It's almost like ice cream. I love, of course, the strawberry, but then you have these bits of oranges mixed in. I just think it's a nice combination, especially for the holidays. But again, do any color you want. You could do, you could do a lime Jell-O and chop up some maraschino cherries and put those in if you wanted to do a red-green thing. Any flavor of Jell-O you like, you'll need, for a mold this size, you need 6 ounces of Jell-O, so either the large box or 2 smaller boxes. But it's just something like, when do you get this? This is just something that takes me back to my childhood, to years ago, and it was just like one of those treats on the table that you just could not wait. I see a Jell-O like this offered at the deli sometimes in the supermarket. They might call it a fluff. And this is sort of similar, a similar idea of the fluff. but it's great. Anyways, so just an idea for your holiday table. You know, who would not love to see something like this? And believe me, kids of all ages go for this. So, thank you. I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe if you like what we do here at Cavalcade of Food, and feel free to share the video and leave a comment. Again, I'd love to hear your Jell-O stories, Jell-O traditions in your family, or the craziest Jell-O mold you ever saw. Please share that. I would love to read those. Also, I'll remind you of my website, cavalcadeoffood.com, and you can get to the videos there. You can get to my other YouTube channel, which is always analog. You can go and see my playlists and listen live for my weekly radio broadcast from Sandusky, Michigan, the Cavalcade Radio Hour. Anyways, it's all there at the website, cavalcadeoffood.com. Thank you again for watching. I hope everyone is going to go into a happy, healthy, safe, wonderful, blessed holiday season. And we'll see you again real soon, right back here on Cavalcade of Food. Bye for now.